Heather. I am a wife and a mother and an insurance agency owner, a friend, and a PTA advocate. I am so excited to talk about all of the things that I find most precious here within our community, within our lives, and within our faith, friendships, and relationships. Here on Heather's Most Precious. Y'all, welcome back to another episode of Heather's Most Precious. And as we conclude our educational series that we have been traveling along the last several episodes, I could not think of a better way to do it than by hearing from a superintendent, just the perfect finale. So I do want to introduce to y'all Dr. Melissa Sadorf.
It's great to be here, Heather, and hopefully I live up to the hype.
Yes, you will. Absolutely. And Dr. Sadorf, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this is my 32nd year in education. I started out in a rural community in Arizona, near the Mexico-U.S. border. Sierra Vista, Arizona, and it was actually where I went to school and graduated high school from, and my husband and I moved back, and I started teaching there right out of college. I was a teacher there in the district for 12 years, and then I moved into administration. I was an assistant principal and a principal, and during my my college doctoral program, I took some superintendent coursework and got certified. And I thought, I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring, and ended up applying to Stanfield Elementary School District, where I've been the superintendent now. This is my 13th year, and I absolutely love it. So that is my education journey in a nutshell. And there's a lot of other things I've done, and I hope I get a chance to dive into them a little bit with you.
Absolutely. Goodness, 32 years.
It's gone in the blink of an eye. It doesn't seem like it's been that long.
Really? Is there, obviously you have shared that there are multiple roles that you have held throughout the 32 years in education, from classroom to administration, now superintendent. Has there been a favorite out of all of the roles? Have you had a favorite?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And I'd have to say all of them, because they're all fantastic in different ways. I mean, obviously, being able to work with students in a classroom setting as a classroom teacher is amazing. And that's where my heart is as an educator is, with kids. But being able to support the education system from a site level position and move a school forward and grow teachers as well as grow students, that was a very enjoyable part of my journey. And then as a superintendent, being able to leverage community and governing board and teachers and staff toward student academic outcomes and other outcomes in a positive way, being able to have that kind of impact, I think the superintendency has just been a real pleasure to have as a vehicle to do that. Not just one school or one classroom, but really a community at large.
Yes.
So they're all my favorite.
Of course. And that's such a brilliant answer. And I do believe, obviously, we know to be at the level that you are, you would have had to have held all of these roles. But do you feel like you would be successful without having experienced the different layers?
No, I think it gives you a very holistic experience to be able to pull from. I don't think I would be as effective as an administrator if I had not ever had the classroom experience. And being in the trenches as a teacher really prepares you for taking that administration seat. I think you miss a big part of what it is to be in the classroom and what it is to work with students and parents in that way. So I think it really informs the work that I've done as an administrator to have had that experience.
Of course. Now, was this always your goal to be seated where you are now? Okay.
No, I think I'm not alone when I say I never intended to leave the classroom. I loved teaching, but there was an opportunity to get my principal certification, and then there was an opportunity to step into an administrative position as an AP. And I thought, well, if not now, then when am I going to do it? So I took it and have had the opportunities just open up in the course of my career. But I think it is absolutely vital for an administrator to have that classroom experience if they want to really be effective and impactful.
Absolutely. I can sense such a passion from the classroom to administration to now superintendent, which is such a beautiful thing and gift. Do you feel like there are certain attributes that you hold that have allowed you to be more successful within the position you currently hold?
Well, I would certainly say grit. This is not an easy position to take on. And so being able to get something done that you say you're going to do and follow through on promises and make sure that things are moving in the right direction, I think is one thing that has served me well. Patience, just being able to know that things don't happen quickly and change does not happen overnight. And having the patience to say, okay, we're going to take it one step at a time and be okay with slow change. If we're moving forward, we're moving. And so that's been helpful. And then, a sense of humor and being able to just enjoy the journey and enjoy the people around me and have fun with it. Because if you're not having fun while you're doing your work, it really feels like work. And really 32 years has not felt like work. It's been enjoyable.
I love that so much. And there's so much truth in that statement. Being passionate and having that balance. Mm-hmm. Yes, getting the job done, but being able to have a joyous attitude towards it really does allow you to make even more of a difference and reach even further. And I know that even in the realms that I have worked, you want to be around people who enjoy what they do. That's such a big thing.
Absolutely.
Yes. What is one of the most interesting things that you have been able to accomplish as a superintendent?
Ooh, just one?
As many as you want to share.
Okay. Well, I would say that there's a couple that are happening right now. The first is that I was able to get involved with the National Rural Education Association, which is a wonderful organization that really does support rural education across the country. And I am taking on their president's position on the executive board starting in January. I was elected 2 years ago, and my presidency starts this January, which I've been able to meet a lot of wonderful people, interesting people, heard a lot of great things about rural education, and then was exposed to a lot of things we need to fix and we need to champion and we need to advocate for. So I'm looking forward to stepping into that role. So that I know is going to be a very interesting time in my career. The other thing that I've got happening right now, currently I'm working on a book. It's called The Resilient Rural Leader, and it is a guide around challenges and innovative solutions that new people that are coming into rural communities as leaders can use as a resource. When I started the superintendency 13 years ago, there was not a lot out there for rural leadership to use as resources, and what was there was very urban-centric. And so I was lucky that I had a superintendent friend, and then the previous leader in my current district, both of them mentored me. And without that mentorship, I would not have been as successful as I have been able to become. But a lot of leaders in rural communities don't have that. And so having a starting point or a jumping off point where they can say, okay, I've got issues around broadband, or there's talks of consolidation in my school community, or I'm trying to figure out where I can go to recruit teachers. Those conversations, when you don't have a partner to have with you around them, are hard. And so it's something that I was pretty passionate about, putting something out there for rural leadership, new leaders, but also veteran leaders that are just stuck in how do I solve this problem in front of me, to use as a resource. And so that's going to be coming out from ASCD in March of 2024. So two things right now that are on my plate that I'm finding to be interesting.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Those are both huge opportunities. And you obviously have a wealth of knowledge to be able to share. And I think to help be a piece of developing other people's leadership and allowing them, you have given them a roadmap. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to do.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited about it. So hopefully when it comes out, I'm able to be a resource for people across the country.
I love that so much. We will definitely be looking at that. That's coming up right around the corner. And what would you say that your leadership style is?
Well, it's evolved. I think right now I have a very open style. Want to be approachable. I want to be supportive. And so really I lead from behind. And when people need to have me come alongside, I'll do that. When they need to have me support from in front, I'll guide. But really, I want to make sure I'm developing the people around me.
So I am sure that the support realm, you remember being in the classroom and how crucial it is to have a strong support base, even when you probably don't even know that you need it. And I love that that is probably the most vital piece of your leadership style is that strong support system for teachers. Is there a certain route that they have to go or a certain chain of command in order to have access to you?
No, and the reason for that is because I'm a single site LEA, which means my district is rather small in terms of size of the district. One school, 450 students. And so I do have a principal. I am the superintendent business manager, and she runs the school. So my door is an open door. And so if there's a teacher that needs to see me, or there's another staff member that needs to see me, they can certainly do that.
Absolutely. Now, I know our school systems here in Tennessee, we have got superintendents. We have our main superintendent, but they're kind of spider webs. And those are also called superintendents of learning communities, which throws me off because where I grew up, we had one superintendent, and that was the head honcho of the school system. And that has been a little bit difficult for, I think, some of us parents and guardians to understand. But I will say it seems to be really good here to have the superintendent to try to have that first level of assistance. And then if we need to take, if the need arises, then we can continue right up the chain if we need to.
Sure.
Obviously, there are things different that you have there. Is this very common for all of your state, or is this strictly where you are that this is the way the school system is?
Typically in Arizona, we have 230 public school districts, traditional public. And then we have another 150 public charter schools. So there's a lot of different districts, and that means that there are the potential to have a lot of different types of organizations within those. But I would say for the most part, we have a superintendent at the top, and then depending on the size of the district, then there may be assistant superintendents or associate superintendents that have a particular focus, like there'll be a CFO that's in charge of all of the fiscal operation of the district, or you might have an operations assistant superintendent. Maybe you'll have one for curriculum and learning.
Very good. Now, you mentioned you are the superintendent of the elementary. So is there also one in your rural area for middle and high school?
That's a good question. Arizona, I think, is one of the few that has 3 different possible setups for traditional public. You can be a K-8 district, which is what I am, So we go kindergarten through 8th grade. You can be a 9-12 district, so a high school district, or you can be a K-12 and have all 12 grade levels plus your kinder within one district. And it depends on when and where the district was founded. And so my particular district is an elementary district, and it feeds into a high school district outside of Casa Grande, Arizona, which is about an hour south of Phoenix. And there are 5 other elementary school districts that feed into that particular high school district.
Okay. Is there a favorite way that you have? I know you've mentioned you have an open door policy as far as the support that you're able to give both your teachers and your administration. Is there a favorite way that you have to support? Is that going into the classroom? Is that just a counseling session? What does that look like?
It depends on the needs of the person in front of me. I mean, all of the above. It could be finding a resource. It could be doing a site visit. It could be coming into a classroom. It could be walking the campus. It really does depend. And I think that that's part of the fun about that kind of position, is that you get to see all of it and you get to be involved with all of it, which is, pretty typical in a rural community where you're wearing a lot of hats. You have to be a holistic leader, and you have to be ready to do anything at any time for anybody.
Right. Do you notice a big difference in the support that you offer the younger grade levels, maybe a kindergarten teacher versus an 8th grade?
My principal is the one that typically is going to be more responsive to those day-to-day needs that the teachers have. My job is to make sure that she can. If there's something that she needs, then I need to make sure that she gets it. If there's a teacher that has professional development needs.
Okay. I love that you have brought up all of the different ways that it could look, and all of those center around good communication. You being rural, which we are, I'm within a city, so this is very foreign for me with my children and where they are in school. Is your community there pretty strong? Do people have very, very strong relationships within and outside of your school?
That's such a great question, Heather. And the answer is yes. The Stanfield community is a very diverse and interesting group of people. Our community boundary is 600 square miles, but it's not very it's sparsely populated. There's not a center as far as density. Really, the community hub is the school. Everything happens at the school and the post office. But I mean, that's a different story. So, because that being said, that the school is the hub, we have had families that are multi-generational and have lived in the community for 3 and 4 generations as ranchers and as farmers. And then we also have 25% of our population that comes from the Tohono O'odham Reservation, which those Native American students also have longevity in their communities, their villages. And so when you bring those two parts of our boundaries together at the school, you have this rich interconnection of diverse cultures and backgrounds, and we have the opportunity to meld them together. And really, those relationships, as a result of those families having been there generation after generation and working with each other and celebrating together and being a community together, really around the school and supporting students and what's happening at the school. It's pretty solid. When you have a teacher that comes to Stanfield, one of the first things that they typically say about our school culture is that it's a family. And it really is true. We are a family.
I love that so much. It's so necessary. Everyone always says it takes a village. And we know that that's true. But when you actually are able to see that that is the community y'all have cultivated there, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Would you mind sharing one of your greatest challenges that you have faced in your current position?
I would say it's staff recruitment and retention right now, and it's not just right now. We have for the last couple of years had some pretty big concerns around getting drivers to our transportation department. And we will train them in-house, but we train them and then they leave, and then we train new ones and then they leave. So we've had a heavy turnover with transportation drivers, and the reason for that is, we have a lot of agriculture and dairy that use trucks to get things from place to place, and they pay a lot more than we do. And so once they get that CDL, they're very, very marketable in our communities.
Okay.
So, and then the other thing that I would say is a challenge is we, as part of not being able to pull staff into the community. I mean, we get them, they stay, but we still have open positions. And our salary schedule is not as high as the communities around us because we have not been able to pass the secondary override tax, which can then be used in the school community for our budget. I would say that those two things right now are the things that keep me up at night. And we're getting ready to go into hiring season come February and getting contracts out and looking for people that might be able to fill those open positions that we know are coming open for the next school year. And it's increasingly hard to get anybody to apply for positions in rural communities, and ours is not the exception to that.
Is that something that you feel like the pay could increase at some point, or do you feel like it is always going to be pretty consistent with where you are now?
That's a really good question, and I wish I had a crystal ball. I would say that probably we are always going to struggle with being able to have the same kind of salary schedules as our neighbors.
Okay. Are there other benefits that you all are able to offer that do offset that a little bit?
Well, it's a great place to work.
Yeah.
And we do pay 100% of their medical, dental, and life insurances. Wow. So we have made that commitment, and the other districts have varying degrees of support around those things. So one of the things that we tend to target is, their total package when it comes to being a Stanfield Roadrunner. Not only do you, get a base pay, but we also do some pretty nice benefits on top of that. And then we also will pay to send people back to school, because being rural means that you may have more than one subject that you're teaching, and you have to be certified in both if you're over the sixth grade level and up.
That's amazing. So definitely some perks outside of that. But I do understand it seems like there's always a revolving door when it comes to staffing, even at our local schools here in Chattanooga, which is very, very metro. It's very hard. And not all of it is related to wanting something different or pay, but it does make it more challenging for those who do choose to stay that are now having to add responsibilities onto their already full plates. I know we have talked about a lot and kind of uncovered some of the goals that y'all have. Is there one focal goal that you have as you go into every year, or is there kind of a moving target where the goal is consistently changing?
Well, obviously, we are always looking at student academic outcomes, right? It's how we're graded at the state level. It's how we get grant funding. So we always want to make sure that our students are succeeding academically. But I think that the other thing that's really important for me as a leader is not just focusing on a test score. We want to focus on the whole child. And so what other supports are we putting in place? What can we bring into the system that's going to help not just the students, but their families, and then ensuring that staff is able to do that work that they need to do as well, whether it's professional learning or supports in their classroom or wherever it is that they're working in the district.
I know you've said, we've talked about briefly testing and how y'all are still looking at the whole child. And I, as a parent, I absolutely despise that. I have one child that, he could never study and he would just get an A on everything. And another that experiences test anxiety. And so for me, it's just so unfortunate that you are basing whether he goes on to a next grade and even his teacher off of his test score, that there are other factors that definitely play a role in that. And I'm sure we would see that anywhere that you go. There are going to be children that struggle with that. What is your philosophy towards state mandated testing?
I think that you've got to have some marker of or an indicator of where a student started and where they ended up. Because if you don't have that data, you're potentially targeting the wrong things for growth and support. I don't think one test that is done after the fact and has no impact on future teaching necessarily for that particular child has a lot of impact for that particular child. I think it informs the system. I don't think it informs the family. And so is there a need to assess and know where they are and how they're progressing? Absolutely. But and it basically is a post-mortem on their year in a single test to have some kind of indication that that's whether or not they were successful. I think that that's short-sighted, and I don't think it's holistic enough. So, yeah, is there importance in having the data? Yes. Is there other things we also need to have as far as considerations? Absolutely. And that's what I would like to see as well.
Yeah. Do you feel like the data is accurate when you know that there are definitely a lot of, once again, multi-factors that go into this, and depending on classroom and child and upbringing, all of that? Do you feel like they are actually accurate?
Well, and I'm going to speak obviously from my Arizona experience.
Right.
I would say that if you get into state assessment as a teacher and you don't know where your students are performing, you've not been doing data collection along the way and having data drive your instruction. You should have a handle on where students are before they even get to the first day of the state test. And most teachers do. That's how they're using data. They're looking at it consistently, often, over time, and they're using it to ensure that students aren't developing gaps and that they're filling them when they need to be filled. They're responding to.
Absolutely. And how is testing used in your district to evaluate the teachers themselves?
So we obviously have a desire to ensure that our teachers are growing just like our students. And so what we're doing is we're assessing if there is an area, a subject, a strand of state standards where teachers are not moving students forward, we can target that particular teacher for professional learning. So that's really how we're using that data. It's really to inform how do we support this teacher so that they're doing what they need to do for students in the classroom.
Right. Obviously, this is a piece, as you have identified, to help ensure that you are picking up on potential issues that y'all have, whether it's from the teacher standpoint, from the child, from learning, making sure that we are bridging that gap. How else are you able to identify potential issues outside of testing?
Well, obviously, if there are parents that bring concerns to us, that's probably low-hanging fruit, right? If we have a parent that has concerns and they share them with us, then we're able to do something with it. My student's not reading, or they're having a hard time with math, and I can't help them with it. Something else that we do at Stanfield is we have a data wall. So we are continually ensuring that our professional learning communities, which are made of grade level teachers, who are consistently planning together, talking through the standards that they're going to be teaching, how students are doing on those standards. They've got their formative assessments in front of them and their comments so that they can talk around what's working and what's not working. What did you do that I didn't because your results are better than mine? I want to do the same thing so that my results can improve. Those conversations. But through those talks, they're also able to identify, okay, we have some needs here and we're not meeting the mark.
Absolutely. Now, you touched on the first point there. You brought in kind of parents bringing matters to your attention that they're seeing in their household with their children specifically. With the way that, how would a parent share their need? Is it still the chain of command, the teacher, and then to potentially the assistant to the principal, or could they come to you directly? What does that look like?
I think it depends on the need. So if we're talking about a behavioral need, and there's been some issues around behavior and potentially office referrals or things have gotten to the point where administration has stepped in to assist the teacher, that might come to me, but my first question to the parent would be, have you talked to the principal and have you talked to the teacher? Because I do want to make sure that we want to solve problems at the lowest level possible, because it's always the easiest way to solve them.
Absolutely. And speaking of developing skills, if there is someone that is interested in pursuing the same career track that you have, even if it was unexpected, what advice would you give to them in order, or what skills would they maybe need to develop in order to be successful?
Well, I would say that it served me well to go through the university that I did to get my degree. I went and got my master's in elementary education and then onto educational leadership. And that put me in a position where I had the certificate and could step into the role of assistant principal and then principal. And then obviously getting my superintendent certification during my doctoral coursework was also another opportunity. So I would recommend that even though we know that student teaching did not prepare you for teaching and going through a principal prep program does not really prepare. I mean, you get a small slice and you get the theory behind and the foundation to start from for those leadership things that come in front of you. So I would say that that's probably important. The other thing that I think is important is if you are interested in pursuing leadership, get involved with a network of other leaders that are currently doing what you want to do and see if one of them will mentor you. That's a great way to start stepping into that space and seeing if it's really for you. Leadership is not for everybody. I had an assistant principal that took over a principal's position after I moved to Stanfield. She got a principal's position. And she was there for a couple of years and then decided, this is not for me. And I'm going to do something different, because I was okay with assistant principal, but I don't want to be in the hot seat on a daily basis for a site. So it's not for everybody. And I think, if you can at least get exposure through people that are doing the job, that can mentor and support you and can sponsor you into those positions when they're coming open, because they're going to know when they're coming open. They can support you getting into that to that pipeline. That's something else I would recommend.
If you can remember back to when you first did accept this role and were kind of live as the superintendent, what do you feel like for any superintendent, regardless of where you are, some of the most crucial first steps are?
Number one, listening. You've got to listen and make sure that you really get a clear understanding before you make any kind of big sweeping changes or decisions that might have impact. You need to get to know the community. even if you've been involved in the community in a different position, I still think it's important because you're coming into a different seat, which means you have now a different perspective that you've got to learn. Listening and just being very careful about collecting information and knowing who does what and who the players are and who, where everything is, and then what the desires of the community are moving forward. Getting to know that. So I would recommend that. The other thing I would say is making sure that you have a network of support, because leadership can be lonely. And if you think it's lonely at the site level, it's even lonelier at the superintendent's level. There are only, 230 of us across the state that can get together and commiserate around things that are in terms of reports that we have to do, or things coming out of the legislature that we have to deal with, or things that state board is instituting that we've got to respond to. And none of them work in my building. None of them are across town from me. So it's important to be intentional about creating a network of support. What is it going to look like? Who's going to be involved in it? Do you have a mentor that you could reach out to on a regular basis? And having more than one is absolutely okay.
Absolutely. I think all of those are great things. And I'm so grateful that we were able to cover such a wide variety of content today, and that the entire series has been to be able to share the perspective that we don't know. Anyone can assume they know what happens, or and we all know what assume means. And so just the ways that as families and as community members, we can help support those that are in the educational industry, and really just understanding the roles that each of you are in, whether it's the classroom, whether it's the counselor's office, whether it is administration, or whether it's from your perspective as a superintendent. Understanding the responsibilities that y'all have is really important for us to understand how we can come alongside and help support, and also maybe not jump to the conclusion that so often, especially I will be the first to say, Mama Bear can jump out sometimes when our children are involved. And so sometimes it is hard to remember, oh, wow, hang on. Maybe I can't see all of the pieces here that are moving around behind the scenes. And that was truly the goal of this, is really just to say, okay, to help our listeners understand and be able to make that sound judgment, as well as, hey, here is the proper way to communicate with said teacher or admin. And all of those are so important. But I am so grateful that this was the finale, and just for the knowledge that you have and have been able to share with us. I am so, so grateful. Now, at the beginning of our call, Dr. Sadorf, you did mention that you have a book coming out in March, which is so exciting. But I know that you also have a podcast. And before we end this, I do want you to be able to share a little bit about what your podcast does and what the intention is behind it.
Oh, thanks, Heather. So my podcast is called The Rural Scoop, and it started 6 years ago, and really it was to highlight things that were working in rural communities across Arizona. And I've since had an opportunity to expand that reach nationally, and I've talked to people from all over the country about what's going on in rural that's great, and what are some of the challenges that they're having, and then talk about some solutions to them, which really, if you think about it, is kind of what I did in my book. Right. But, highlighting that there really are some amazing things happening out there in rural education. And it's sometimes something we don't often get a chance to talk about, the successes. We hear a lot about the negative things that are happening and all the barriers, and there are really, really good things happening. And so highlighting them I thought was important. So the Rural Scoop, that's what I'm also working on. And hopefully, Heather, I get a chance to have you on as a parent It would
Yes,
be fun to get your perspectives around what's working for your students in your community as well.
absolutely. I would be honored. It has been, once again, just an absolute joy to get to know you, to hear the passion that you do have for not only rural education, but for your school family, for your community there. And that is so, so important. I think sometimes it is very, very easy to get to the top and to want to make a power play, but to hear you still say that you want to support and you want to listen and you want people to understand how valued they are in their roles, that is so, so important. And I'm just really grateful that we were able to spend this time together and make that connection. And so thank you again so, so much for being a part of Heather's Most Precious in the finale of our educational series.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Throughout this series, you have heard different ways that you can come alongside to support different teachers in your community. If you do have questions, or if you are wondering of additional ways that you can support not only your school's classroom, but maybe even your admin or superintendent, please reach out to us, Heather's Most Precious @gmail.com, or you can find us on social media. As always, we are so, so grateful to bring content to you that can help challenge what you believe in, as well as the perspective that you have. I hope that y'all will encourage each other to be supportive of those who work so, so hard to bring up this future generation. Thanks, y'all.